Okay, so Hans, I had your bio, but I kind of would love for you to maybe briefly talk about how what your sort of role is at Brumate and how you ensure this brand loyalty from your customers.
Yeah, I was on a panel this morning, for those that may remember. If you stuck around, good for you. I know there's this panel and then one more. I guess this isn't a panel, but after me, and then it's happy hour, so I'll try to make this fun and entertaining and let everybody get to the happy hour as quick as possible. But to reinforce what I said before, I lead growth at Brumate. What that means mostly is I'm in charge of new customer acquisition, and that happens to be quite a bit of paid media work, of course, Meta, between Instagram and Facebook, TikTok, anything else that helps us get our message and products in front of customers and succeed. But a big passion of mine is media measurement and attribution. This has been like a crusade I've been on for the last few years. First at a healthy 8-figure business in Brunt Workwear and helping them stand up some channels. And then I was brought into Brumate with a specific charge to cut inefficient media spend, refocus the business on first purchase profitability. And in order to do that, you have to have really good fundamentals in measurement and attribution. And I guess by adjacency, that's become a passion of mine.
That is I hear that and I'm thinking that's a very tough code to crack. But how difficult is that to do? Especially if you're in your first foray into this. Was there a methodology that you created yourself, or was this something that you, just from trial and error, created your own methodology that has just been your tried and true go-to?
I would say trial and error. I don't proclaim to be a genius, but there's quite a bit of testing and failure that comes along with this and figuring out what works and iterating on that. I think one of the biggest unlocks, which is something I'm going to talk quite a bit about, is how to use a post-purchase attribution survey, which if you do not have, it's always interesting for me to gauge in the crowd, like as time goes on, how many people have adopted a post-purchase attribution survey. And when I say that, I mean, how did you hear about us survey, usually on your order confirmation page, both to new customers and then for repeat as well. If they're a returning customer, ask them what brought them back to the site today, reasons they decided to repurchase. But I've been a massive advocate, evangelist for post-purchase survey, and I've got some other things to talk about on how to round out that attribution triangle. But I think I was lucky to jump on this post-purchase survey train in its infancy, I think before it became a pretty trendy topic, and is something that thankfully has a lot more traction these days. But that allowed me to, in now multiple businesses, unlock channels that traditional kind of click-based attribution, whether you rely on Google Analytics, which marketers asked to track and pre-iOS 14 were very, very reliant on, even though we knew it was lying to us in a lot of ways. And as well, like platform attribution, how to avoid the pitfalls of just using like what Facebook Ads Manager tells you is the value of your advertising, because at the end of the day, Meta's grading their own homework, right? They can't be trusted completely, shouldn't be trusted completely, and it's good to test and validate outside of their walled garden. But yeah, to answer your question succinctly, a lot of test and learn. So I'm here to tell you I have been in many situations and I have failed dramatically, and I'm here to hopefully shine some light on that journey.
So, we were talking, we were sort of referring to this a traditional way of attribution and following this in a sort of flat two-dimensional way of tracking things. But you mentioned this triangulation that you came up with, which I found really interesting. But in a very simple way, or maybe it's not that simple, but if you are a small company out there and you want to try to implement this, well, I'm going to rewind that for a second. First, talk about this post-purchase survey, because when I think about that, being on the customer side of things, I think there's no way I'm going to take a survey, especially if the copy isn't interesting, or it's going to take any more time of me getting out of that purchase and on with my life. But how do you make that interesting so people actually take that and give you information that you want? And then I want you to talk about the triangulation that you came up with.
Actually, really glad you bring that up, because I think that's a common thought of brand side people that are thinking about implementing a post-purchase survey. and of consumers. Like, you believe, like, oh, I'm not, going to fill out the survey. I think what's very interesting is when you have just completed a purchase with a brand and you're on that order confirmation page, your hype should be at an all-time high of, I just decided to spend my hard-earned money here with this brand. I'm really hopeful for what's to come. And it's interesting because I've seen at lots of businesses, and I consult with others than the two I've been an employee of as well, and I see over and over and over, and post-purchase vendors like Faring or No Commerce, they back this up with a data set of thousands of brands all using a post-purchase attribution survey, that they're seeing on average minimum 30% response rate, but some brands, depending on how...
30%?
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's a goal to strive for, but I've seen brands have 50% or higher response rates on post-purchase surveys asking those questions, how did you hear about us? And follow-up questions as well, like if you chose Instagram, mind telling us who posted? Was it an ad? Was it or in plain language the customer understands, oh, it was you that posted, or it was an influencer, or someone I follow, and you get really, really, really rich, invaluable qualitative information directly from the customer to help inform your media mix decision making. But like, I'll get off my post-purchase survey pedestal that's only one part of an effective media measurement mix, and that you cannot solely rely on a post-purchase survey. There's going to be blind spots there, and having a well-rounded mix is definitely what I advocate for. And the other two prongs of that attribution stool that I talk about are platform attribution data. So there is some, to a limited extent, usefulness in what Facebook Ads Manager tells you or TikTok Ads Manager tells you for optimizing in that silo of, like, if you're really big, huge hot topic right now is creative testing and creative experimentation and platforms to fuel growth. And I couldn't agree more that creative is one of the biggest levers that you have to fuel paid social acquisition today.
Well, I'm going to back up for a second.
Yeah.
What do you mean by creative?
The ad units. So, UGC, someone talking about, oh, I just discovered this product, you should buy it. Or it's designed creative from the brand, Brumate introducing the new Move 35, our, newest innovation in 100% leak-proof drinkware. It's whatever the brand's message is, whether it comes from the brand or it comes from somebody else, through a social platform delivered to the, consumer
so
as they're making.
So it's not just UGC, it's kind of a whole host of everything.
Well-rounded mix.
Yep.
But my take is, as I hope any media buyers in the room, understand and have felt for some time, Facebook's, attribution lies to you to some extent. It likes to be, very generous, tends to be very generous in its attribution, and tell you there's more value. Again, this is Facebook grading their own homework. Tells you there's more value in the money that you're spending with them in terms of its, revenue generation for the business than may exist. But in a lot of cases, it's actually more valuable than their platform attribution would tell you, and it really depends on the scenario. And that's why having multiple prongs of attribution and measurement to lean on helps you triangulate and really get like a healthy average of the contribution to the business. The last part of that attribution triangle I advocate for. I'm sure a lot of you, and I know there's like vendors here, MTA vendors, whether it's Northbeam, Rockerbox, Triple Whale, right? Like, I advocate for MTA, multi-touch attribution, to a limited extent. But what I have seen before is, I'll say, lazy marketers, that's probably a bit too damning, but leaning on multi-touch attribution as their source of truth, and especially where multi-touch attribution is a machine learning driven model, some proprietary, black box, if you will, of Northbeam saying, let us tell you what's driving value for your business. You never build a familiarity with exactly when you pull this lever, when you do X, Y happens, in a way that's studying your post-purchase survey and using that qualitative data that the customer is so willing to give you. I've found that time and time again, and especially for standing up new channels like TikTok, where it couldn't show any click-based attribution to save its life. TikTok is not an engagement channel, it's a discovery channel. Google, on the other hand, Google search, that's an engagement channel, that's where clicks come from. And so multi-touch attribution or click-based attribution tools in general have limited usefulness when it comes to scaling a business through channels where folks are actually discovering your brand and aren't expected to engage right away. There'd be no, paper trail, if you will, of them engaging with your brand. They've just seen an ad. However, post-purchase survey lets you hear directly from the customer, oh, it was TikTok. I discovered your brand on TikTok. And that helps you make the decision, like I need to guide my investment in this channel in a way that platform attribution, TikTok couldn't show that value to save its life, nor could an MTA to some extent.
So I have two questions for you. One, I'm going to go back to the copywriting of the post-purchase survey, right, for a second. Is there a tipping point that you've seen where maybe too many questions were asked, or is there it seems like there would be a fine line between where the customer is like, sure, I'll engage, and then suddenly they're like, I'm out, bye. What is that fine line?
I will answer from my perspective, but again, the vendors themselves, No Commerce in particular, has done, like they work with thousands of brands, which is awesome because that number used to be hundreds or dozens first and then hundreds, and like the momentum's really picking up here for post-purchase survey and being a future-proof method of, you know, at least growth marketing or acquisition attribution. But to answer the question directly, they have done quite a bit of testing of exactly that question of how long can the survey be, how much can we ask of the customer in that moment before they start to fall off, or the experience turns from a good one into a bad one when they feel like they're being used to some extent, right? And through my own testing and using some of their best practices, you'd be surprised how many questions you can ask before you start to see that fall off. And if you go, please go to brumate.com and buy something. Use an email if you're a new email, if you're already a customer, so you can see this post-purchase survey for new customers. But it's actually quite in depth. I think there are 6 questions, and there's some conditional logic built in that if you indicate it was this channel that you heard about us, it'll ask a different follow-up to help gather more, again, qualitative data to understand really what influenced a purchase. For example, like if you indicate Instagram, okay, who posted about us? You did, an influencer, someone I follow. You know, open free-form response. Okay, who was it? Type the name, move on. How long did you know about the brand before purchasing today? You know, less than a day, up to a week, up to a month, you know, 6 to 12 months, greater than 12 months. Indicate your age, indicate your gender. Like, they are willing to give you quite a bit of information that becomes invaluable when it comes to guiding your media investment decisions. But you can get away with a lot, but I like test for it, because too low of a response rate makes it difficult to extrapolate that data and make it statistically relevant for your entire customer base. I'd say for a lot of brands, anything less than like a 25% completion rate of your post-purchase survey is probably going to make using that data, limited to some extent. But 30+%, 40% completion rate, you can trust with a high degree of confidence that that data is clean and very, very valuable.
And I could imagine it also comes down to the questions you're asking too, that is very specific to the answers you want to solicit that will better and further your mission to try to get very specific and market effectively to that customer. I know we talked about MTAs, and I think there's sort of dancing around the fact that it could be a tool that lazy marketers use, but are you advocating for brands to get rid of that completely, or are you saying that we should maybe have that as a part of it? I think you are advocating for this to be part of something bigger, or is it relevant anymore?
It's absolutely relevant, and I want to do my best to speak to the common denominator of this room, right? Because we're each going to have a different business with a different channel mix at a different stage of growth, and that is going to change what's important to you in that phase of your business with those channels that you're using. And so there's not a one-size-fits-all strategy, but what I'm hoping to communicate is that if you have not spent a significant amount of time digging in to that qualitative data in your post-purchase survey and your decision-making process every day with, do I spend more on Facebook? Do I spend more on TikTok? Do I work with this influencer more? Do I spend more on Google Ads? If this place you go to answer those questions tends to be an MTA first, I would question if you really understand what is driving your business, and if you don't start with especially when it comes to where am I going to spend my money, your media mix decision-making specifically, if you don't start with something that isn't going to have the same kind of intrinsic bias or limited scope of usefulness, where multi-touch attribution, even those out there that integrate views coming from a platform, so say Northbeam integrates with TikTok, it's going to be limited to impression data from TikTok paid ads. They're going to have no visibility into organic impressions of your brand on TikTok. But again, the post-purchase survey, someone's going to come right to you and say, it was this influencer on TikTok, in a way that MTA could never pick up on if there wasn't some direct session to your site, tagged UTM parameters, or however you do it, as being from TikTok, right? So again, I think it's like, if you become overly reliant on a done for you machine learning model or like multi-touch attribution that is intrinsically biased, you're going to make intrinsically biased decisions that aren't necessarily best for your business or for the sake of incrementality or driving growth. You may be optimizing for bottom of funnel that's eventually going to fatigue, and then you're going to be left in the situation with skyrocketing CACs and no, top of funnel to, continue to message to and bring down the funnel and turn into, good high quality paying customers.
One thing that I definitely want us to touch on in the next 4 minutes is the case study that we were talking about, where you in a year went from $0 to $10 million using the strategy on TikTok. And I'm assuming it's this triangulation that you came up with, but tell the audience exactly how you did it. I had misread it at first, and I thought it was 100 million. And Hans,
that'd be awesome.
He corrected me. He's like, I wish, but it was really 10 million. But still, 10 million is a lot in a year. Going from 0 to 10 million based on the strategy you came up with. So impart your knowledge on us, because I think this is really interesting. 365 days, I mean, that doesn't, it seems like a long time, but it actually, in our timelines and time frame, it's not at all. And clearly you had something very effective going on here.
If you are brand side and you actually can, show significant, let's say like 8-figure revenue from TikTok, I want to talk to you during the happy hour. Please find me. I think TikTok, for a lot of folks, and I'm talking about some experience from now a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, where TikTok, an emerging channel, everybody is, super hyped on the potential that this channel represents to diversify their media mix away from Meta and Google, the omnipotent media overlords that we've been subjugated to for however many years. And it presents this wonderful opportunity. But it's so much different of a channel. And I think all of this tech at the time, and I mean, Apple threw a huge curveball with iOS 14 changes that radically reshuffled the deck. But step by step, how we did it, right? It's like, okay, we want the business to start showing, revenue attributable to TikTok. However, if we're running paid ads on TikTok, despite being really cheap and effective because you're an early, TikTok advertiser, CPMs are cheap, click-through rates are great or okay. But TikTok's ad manager can't attribute a sale to save its life. What are you going to do? Are you going to continue to spend? Like, how are you going to show that value? So that was the kind of philosophical question I had of like, okay, well, I believe there's an opportunity here. The monthly, active user base is there. I see a lot of really good engagement with, the creative and the ads that we're putting in the platform, but I can't attribute it. And that's where like the post-purchase survey comes in. But what's really useful then is, in order to get some kind of apples to apples comparison, it is still, valuable to be able to compare, like, what does Meta or, Facebook, Instagram produce in terms of revenue for me when we do use an apples to apples comparison model, like a click-based attribution view. You can still kind of compare like TikTok to Meta or whatever, but we would have never been able to double, then quadruple, triple, like 10x our investment in TikTok had we not, this different view of showing the value that we could feel on the business. We just couldn't show with the normal kind of like accepted, sources of attribution at the time.
And without using actual numbers, because I don't know if you can talk about this, but did you go all in with the investment, or were you like, we'll just kind of throw a couple 100,000 over there, or 10,000, or was it like, we're going all in and this is what we're expecting this?
You can start from zero and grow like little by little, but like, you can get up to sustained, like healthy 6-figure a month investment in that channel in paid ads, and another healthy 6-figure investment in that channel in influencers and organic growth, product seeding, influencer arrangements, a lot of like affiliate-based stuff where, you sell our product and we pay you 10% commission on product sales, but you cannot get there until you have some like really foundational way of showing that value. So that's like, and it's the same for other channels, right? Like, I know we're running out of time here, but like, TikTok's not it. If your brand has ambitions to diversify your media mix into more offline channels, or you're a retail brand trying to get into D2C, like your CPG or in grocery stores, you want to get into D2C, post-purchase survey is invaluable. One of our responses is like, how did you hear about us? Oh, in a retail store. Okay, which one? And we see, you know, what we thought was a degrading thing for us to sell a lot of our overstocked inventory to TJ Maxx actually turned into like a really great outcome for our D2C business, because we saw customers coming to us, to our D2C website, indicating that they first saw our product in a TJ Maxx store and they wanted to buy more. And so it went from being, you know, liquidating product at next to no margin to actually having an incredibly profitable, pretty much freely acquired customer on the D2C site that now has this like different lifetime value trajectory. But again, none of this would be possible without some very different source of measurement. It does require some more like oversight and study and time set aside to like really dig into and understand how these channels are contributing to the business, and not just blindly relying on you know, some machine learning attribution model that tries to guide your investment for you.
Hans, I could talk to you about this for the next 3 hours. Unfortunately, we have one more panelist that's coming up, and then we have our happy hour. But I think I might get post-purchase survey. I need to talk to Patrick over there at Lulu, see if he can put that on a t-shirt for me so I can walk around on that. I've learned so much from you, and I think our audience definitely has too. Thank you so much, Hans. Incredibly insightful. I can't believe how much, I mean, just the TikTok story has it's just seared into my mind. It's really incredible. So thank you.
Thank you.